Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. Don't worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Hope you're all having a great day. Danny and I are ramping up for a really good conversation with our guest that we've got on. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Danny?
Spring, ramping up for spring. I'm doing great. I'm doing
Yeah?
really well. It's a lot of very busy days, of course. Definitely getting ready for spring. Had a lot of things over the weekend. It was an interesting week here. We had the board retreat. I drove back in the snow. We talked about that last week. The snow
Yep.
stayed forever, and just this weekend started to melt away because it went up into the 70s. So
Yep,
we're
there
starting
you
to
go.
see spring. The crocuses are coming up, and some other bulbs are starting to pop up. So the kids are ready.
Yeah.
We're ready. I will say next year for spring break, we're going to do nothing again because it was great. We had a sleepover, basically. We had, kids, friends come over, and I'm like, yeah, come over before dinner, after dinner, I don't care. And
Yeah.
just, go downstairs and hang out. And the, one of my kids asked for their birthday in January to get a subscription to Crunchyroll. And I'm going to guess you
Yeah.
don't know what Crunchyroll
I
is.
do know what it
Do
is.
you?
I do know what that
Wow. All
is.
right.
Yeah, I
So,
I don't have a subscription to it, but I do know what it is mainly because I run around with a few people who are really big into anime.
yeah. Yeah. So those who don't know, Crunchyroll is the place for anime. It's got just about everything you can imagine. And yeah, it's been very interesting. Like they just went downstairs and set up that subscription on a TV down here and just watched TV and laughed and ate and just relaxed. And it was really, because we have a lot of families here that don't really have the ability to go south for the spring break. I
Yeah.
mean, it's difficult. So we just kind of, what are you going to do when it's freezing? So, yeah, got a
Huddle up with all your
couple
friends.
of sleepovers. Yeah. I can't imagine anything at that age, especially that would be better for you. So
Sounds like my
it's been a
childhood.
really
I
good
mean, I
week.
didn't go anywhere typically for spring break, so unless you call
Yeah.
driving down to southern Indiana to, spy on Larry Bird in French Lick, Indiana, something. But other than that was my dad's idea of spring break. Let's go on a road trip to southern Indiana. So
Yeah.
go, and it literally was to go find Larry Bird's childhood home and then track down where Larry Bird currently lived at that time and actually find him out shooting hoops and try to get his attention before having the cops called on us, which we didn't have that happen. But still, I'm like, Dad, we're going to get the cops called on us. This is not going to go well. So,
Let's get
uh,
out of here.
yeah, I don't need my spring break report back to school be, yeah, got arrested for, trying to stalk a former professional basketball player
I mean,
who's just trying
sure, it
to,
would have been damaging at the time, but what a great story,
right?
years
Yeah.
later. This is how my dad got me arrested.
I mean, it was cool to see him shooting hoops, that kind of thing from, a distance. So that was
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the thing, it's you make spring break what you can, and just being able to spend time together as a family, honestly, or spend time together with friends is really what spring break is kind of all about. It's a nice recharge for finishing up the rest of the school year.
Yep. Yep.
So
Agreed.
today we have a special guest. Our guest is actually returning guest from previous episodes. I think the last time he was on with his cohort from his podcast, the Dad Ass Podcast. But we have Matt Lofy in the house, and Matt is
In the
from
house.
Columbus, Ohio, and he is a just a fun guy to talk to. We talked with him about his show last time he was on, and he likes to talk about parenting and cocktails and all that kind of stuff. But he's actually presenting at Home Dad Con this year again. Last time he came to Arizona and he was the closing keynote, and this year he's going to be doing a breakout session. And I think it's a really relevant breakout session, honestly. Like, I think that just reading
Hmm.
through the description, I think there's a lot of dads who are trying to figure out how to just maneuver this specific topic. Would you say that's correct? I mean, you've got one that's already like an adult basically, but they're in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah. If we don't talk about the subject, then I don't know if we should talk about, do you want to say it out loud or do we have to wait for Matt? He'll announce it.
Well,
Cool. But yeah,
it's a long top. It's a long name. I can't. That's the thing that you sent it to me this morning,
well,
and I was like, "Oh, crikey!"
yeah, several paragraphs in text. I was going to email it, but I didn't. My phone was not cooperating. But yeah, how at-home dads build capable, work-ready humans. And
Yeah,
yeah, that is kind of what we do. I've always thought of it as I want kids that are loving and strong and smart. And that's what I think in that order, really. Maybe smart before strong. But
Eh,
kids that'll go out into the world and be good human beings. And a big part of that, especially, in capitalism, is you got to have a job. So how are you going to be able to use those things or how are they going to be able to use the things that you teach them at home to go out into the workforce?
definitely.
What
Yeah.
are they going to learn from that? So, yeah.
Cool. We will be back with Matt Lofy after this quick break.
The Dads Run 5K is more than a race, it's a movement. Join us at HomeDadCon in Chicago or run virtually from anywhere. This event is for everyone: dads, moms, kids, walkers, and runners. Every step supports the Fathers Overcoming Adversity Fund, helping families when they need it most. So lace up, show up, and be part of something meaningful. Sign up today for the Dads Run 5K, link in show notes.
All right, and we are back. So I hope you were able to run to the bathroom or deal with that rowdy kid for a few minutes there before we got into what we're going to talk about now. So, hey, we have with us Matt Lofy. Matt, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, man?
It's an absolute honor to be back with you two legends. So thank you for this opportunity.
Wow,
Imagine in my own mind.
I guess I make sure I owe you a drink when you come to Chicago
Our,
with a conference like that.
our podcast has been what was supposed to be a short break because our daughter was not sleeping through the night. And it's hard to have a podcast talking about being an equal partner and then not being home in the evenings and then not sleeping. And now it's been a year and a half of not having the Dad Ass podcast. So getting ready for today, I was like, what do I need to do? How close to the microphone should I be?
How do
I
we
feel
do
like
this
a
again?
rookie. I feel like a rookie, so I'm sorry. So Legends, B team, Varsity, JV. I
I
have
don't
to
know
get
about
back
that.
at it.
Thanks.
You were on the injured reserve for a minute, but it's fine. You're back up and running. You're the quintessential professional. You can do this.
Definitely.
No.
Last time I think we saw you was Arizona when you and Sean Diddy were closing out Home Dad Con. I believe that was the last time we really saw you because we had already had you on the show before that. You've done a lot of things since then. And I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of that gap in between then and now has sort of formulated what you're going to be talking about at Home Dad Con. Would I be
Yeah,
in the ballpark?
yeah, that's very true. Part of the reason why I went to one Home Dad Con and then never came back was the next 2 years you had Home Dad Con was on the weekend of my massive 1 day street fair.
That's
For my,
right.
my previous job, running a chamber of commerce, and especially in Ohio, it is one, fall is just unbelievably busy, but it also has to go around when the Ohio State Buckeyes are not playing. And
Right.
so for a
Yes.
couple years in a row, it was like, I can't do this. Or it'd be the week beforehand, and I had a crew of volunteers going and doing prep work the weekend before, and they called me out for being at home dad con.
Oh
My first
no.
year, they go, "Oh, you're going on another speaking thing?" I go, "No, because I'm going to be here with you.
Yeah.
Setting up." I was like, so sorry to be involved and then not be involved, but
No, you're
it's
good,
also
man.
allowed me, like you said, to grow in my chamber career. Now I'm at my second chamber since and a much larger chamber of commerce doing more work, especially in workforce development, which is kind of the topic that I'm talking about when we get into Chicago.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel, we have quite a few dads who have kids that are getting close to that aging out of like normal school and getting ready to look at maybe high school or sorry, college or trade school or whatever it is and just trying to maybe figure out how to have those conversations. And I think for a lot of our dads, like they're pretty good about being proactive. I feel like over the years we've seen a lot of that, but it's always good to be able to talk to somebody who's got multiple hours in, especially like a
The
workforce type in.
data.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to bring somebody in who's we'll call that, if we're legends, you're a professional type setting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I think for especially at home dads, right? Because you're staying at home. Some people maybe have always been at home. Some have had different levels of career, and forever how long it may have been since having a job, or it could have been years of being in the workforce. The biggest thing to really think about is a lot of the lessons we're teaching our children, whether they're 5 or 15, or, even still, 2021 about to graduate. There are things that we do daily that are transferable skills that are missing, and the stats and then the hiring and the CEOs are saying we're lacking. And we have this opportunity as parents, you have opportunities as the primary caregivers to start to teach those tangible skills that are missing. And that's where I see kind of my background of the Dad Ass podcast and then the chamber world colliding, because we have parenting philosophies of, we can be soft and very encouraging, we can be the F around and find out kind of parents, but no one's saying I should try and parent a future business owner. I should be parenting someone to be a future leader. And that's where I see kind of both my personal passion and my professional passion colliding. And I think there's no one better than at-home dads to be teaching those skills.
Yeah, I would agree. And Brock did mention early, when he said before that we have dads with kids of that age that are going out into the workforce, and that's true. I'm one of them, and that exists. But those skills start way earlier. I mean, 15 years ago, I was teaching my kids the little things that you are going to talk about in your presentation and possibly today, about how to talk to people, how to set things up around a schedule that you're going to get set a goal and reach that. And so many things, like you said, that we do on the daily are really good opportunities to show our children, okay, this is where you could go. This is where you might end up. My youngest right now has a huge crocheting problem. She has a problem, but she is constantly producing. I mean, she had, I bet, over 200 things, like animals and just things that she had crocheted. And she took them to a local craft fair, and fortunately set with a friend of ours and didn't have to actually pay to get in there. So, and she made $100. And I went, okay, this is what it is. And I said, but the things you have to know now is, how much money did you spend on yarn? Nothing. Okay. But what was your investment? What would it have been? Did you know that it's actually $150 just to be at the show? And getting those little bits of framework to her. And I don't know that she will ever, that's going to be her job or her business or anything like that, but understanding the cost of a thing, and then what your actual profit's going to be when you have to take that out. And that's something we don't really talk about with children a lot, because we don't want them to worry about it. I think I'll buy, I got you, I'll get your clothes, I'll get your food, I'll get you everything you need, and a lot of stuff you want. I don't want you to have to worry about that. But realistically, they should have an understanding of it. And reading through the synopsis of your presentation, I felt like, yeah, there's a ton of opportunities where you could teach your child how to work once they leave the house.
100%. And first, kudos to you to then sit down and have a cost analysis of, all right, you made 100, but you would have been 50 in the hole had you had paid just for the fee.
Right.
That's a great lesson. Some people would see that as being negative, but to me, we're not teaching the actual entrepreneurial skills or the acumen that we need to know the operations arm of being an entrepreneur. And so, like, you talk about some of the dads who have students about to graduate from high school. I came up across a survey, and I have some stats over here. So if you see me looking, I have stats here, notebook here. So you've seen podcasts,
See,
Matt.
true professional
This is
right
work.
there.
This is work, Matt. I'm in shorts right now and sandals, but put on a button-up shirt just to look like, I am what I said I was on paper.
A true Zoom call right there.
But I want to share this statistic with you. This is from a reputable source. HR professionals were polled last year nationally in an article, and it said that 90% of their youngest entry-level employees were fired for two primary reasons. Are you ready for this? communication and showing up on time.
Yep.
Those are
Yep.
two things that you, as primary caregivers, me as a father who works and then spends as much time as I can when I get home, we can teach showing up on time and we can teach communication. And those are reasons why young people are getting fired, because outside of that article, communication, or what some will say soft skills, is the number one skills gap of younger employees. And that's from all employ. Wow, I can't talk. See, on the Dada's podcast, we have bourbon. I feel like I can talk great. Here, I'm drinking water with a little lime in it. And like the zest is making me trip
Gotta
up
go
on my
dry,
words.
man. You know, that lubrication.
So, part of what I want to talk about in the talk in Chicago is, think about that. If 90% of young people, this newest generation in the workforce, has gotten fired for either communication and lack thereof, communication skills, or showing up on time, we're showing when we have to hustle everyone out of the house to get to practice, get to insert whatever extracurricular or whatever it is we might be doing, we're showing them time management. In the morning, just going through that routine of get your food, go brush your teeth, put your stuff in the hamper, and then the reminder of put your crap in the hamper right now, right? Because I'm sure I'm not the only dad that has to say it 2 or 3 times, but we're teaching not only logistics, but planning and time management. I look at it too, right? Before bedtime, when we have to negotiate why it's time to go to bed. It's not a punishment that we're putting you to bed at 7:30 p.m. You have school tomorrow, and 7:30 is your bedtime. But here's why it is your bedtime. You need sleep now that you're 6 years old, or you need this because of blah, blah, blah. We're also then teaching a little bit of that negotiation, clear and concise communication. And we're never really thinking about that as parents. We're like, hurry up and go to bed because I want to watch Dropout so I can watch the mommy and daddy show because we can't watch it with you. But in theory, we're teaching then negotiations. When there's a conflict between siblings, we're showing and teaching and living out mediation and conflict resolution. And again, these are all things we do day in and day out. But until we start to frame it as these are the skills employers right now, and I'm assuming in 5 years, we'll be saying probably the same thing, maybe even longer, but there'll be even a new set of skills missing. But these are things that we're doing daily. Your dads, the dads that are home day in and day out, are doing. And now we can be saying, here's why I just raised my voice. But there's a reason behind it. And we're reigniting. We're, bringing attention to things like accountability and resilience and active listening, all skills that data and professionals are saying are missing severely in these younger generations.
Yeah. And I think I would agree with that. I will say both of my older kids have phones. They're 16 and 19. So the 19-year-old, of course, obviously, neither one of them has set up their voicemail. And I've told them 15 times, I bet, to both of them. And they don't do it. And they're like, who's going to call me? I'm like, every single job application you put in, even online, wants to be able to reach you by the phone. And they don't understand that because the phone for them has never been what it was for my generation, probably not for y'all either, but I don't want to assume, but we just, you always, that's how you did it. This is the phone. This is how you set it up. Oh, you have a mobile now. This is your voicemail. This is how you set up your texting and all those things that you would expect that it's just kind of a given. Yeah, this is how you talk to your boss. This is how you reach them when you're feeling sick or you can't go to work or something. This is how you do it. And they are good, but I would have fired my 16-year-old by now. I'm just going to say she doesn't really have a job yet, but she's doing the things that are leading up to it and getting her, driver's license and all that stuff. Okay, so you're going to get a job, right? So then you have to communicate, and she doesn't have the skills. She's also, neurotypical and very introverted and yada, but that's the gap. I could see that easily.
Yeah.
Just, where were you yesterday? Oh, I forgot to call. Oh, you're fired. I mean, that's a fire in the fence, in my opinion. That's, you didn't call in, no call, no show. That may be different now with the newer generation, but that was always, you're fired. There wasn't even a guess about it. No call, no show, unless you were in a car accident and your phone exploded. You should have called your boss, right?
And also too, not as a parent, not taking the time to you know, give your kids the know-how of how to do those things. You basically are taking that and putting it on their employer to either have compassion and show them these things, or to, like you said, like fire them. And that's just not, it's not a good flow of steps of life, you know, like to put it on the next person like that, to do that. And I know, like with my wife's job, you know, she's very good about venting to me without ever naming names or anything like that, but just like sharing like what some of the things that she goes through as a team leader. And just, it's very similar. You know, you're hearing these grown adults who they are not calling in. They're, you know, they've got super justification reasons for not doing XYZ project the right way, or meeting specific goals for the company, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely a thing where you don't have to be a helicopter parent about it, but you do
Right.
need to take the time to teach your kid how to function as a grown adult. Because, I mean, there are things even from when I was growing up that I had to learn outside of the house, but at the same time, too, they were things that I feel like I would go back to my parents and ask them about, you know, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and how to better myself. But yeah, I it's very interesting, like that's kind of where things have kind of progressed to over the years. Especially, I get the thing with the phone is definitely one that's very frustrating for me. I feel like an old man in a way with it, because you know, I'm very much as I like to text, and Danny will tell you this, like I'm very much more of a person that I will pick up the phone and call you before texting you. Oh my gosh, cardinal sin.
You better be bleeding or on fire. There's no
I
reason
really
why you wouldn't text somebody first. Let them know, hey, I'd like to talk to you today.
I have no qualms for calling versus texting.
And then, right, I'm 40. So I got my first phone when I turned 16. It was a massive phone. I didn't want it, but I got it because my folks wanted to know where I was for work or football or whatever practice I had or whatever extracurricular. I never wanted a phone. But for 16 years of my life, I did not have a phone. I didn't text until 4 years later because that wasn't really a big thing. Nor did I know that every text cost like a, you know, 10
Yeah.
cents.
Yes.
And then
10
I got
cents.
sent
Yeah.
down for Hurricane Katrina, get home, and my mom goes, "What's this $300 charge?" I don't know. Someone was texting me, so I was texting back. I thought it was free. Anyway, that's not the point.
Yeah. As it should have been. But yeah.
This generation, generations under us to even our youngest, are inundated with screens. Regardless of how we monitor it, there are screens at school, they're typing, things have to be, done by a screen. So
Mhm.
we have people that are very good communicators with spell check and apps to help with making, things sound better. Or how I joke and say, I sure do type good, but I have to do a lot of right clicking with things that are underlined. But here's what I've heard from some employers. And this is again why I think taking my chamber and then the Dad Ass podcast and kind of blending them. There are some people who, on their resumes or however they apply, sound phenomenal, but then they can't communicate when they sit down for an interview, or they used AI, which is another thing we have to think about because there's good and bad with that. They learn how to say things very eloquently or very professional, and then have no idea what they wrote and how to say it so articulative in person. So I'm hearing from employers, they're like, and some of our best candidates on paper are awful in person because they're not going to close a deal. They're not going to do this. And then I hear secondary, outside of those concerns from some leadership development and recruiters, people aren't even showing up half the time. I'm making that statistic up, but from the people I've talked to, it seems half the time interviews aren't even showing up because they're trying to chase a better one, or they're doing what I call the shotgun method. One resume across all platforms, spray and pray,
Yeah.
if you will, in terms of applying, and then they don't even know, one, what's in their resume, and two, what they applied for.
There's
Mhm.
definitely a grass is greener on the other side mentality that is heavy in the younger generation for sure.
So I think having this discussion in terms of parenting, especially with at-home dads, it's important, right? Nothing that I'm saying is profound. It's just reframing the lessons that we're teaching or the
Right.
mundane parenting duties that we do day in and day out. And we're like, my goodness, gotta get them out the door again, or I have to do this. We have an opportunity to not only keep them engaged because we're taking them places, but now we have an opportunity in just this reframing of things to say, I'm also teaching them X, Y, and Z that's a transferable skill to make them better. Because here's the reality, and I have a stat here so I don't screw it up. And I did not cite my source, but I did find it in AI and another article so I can cross-reference. But right now, between now, which is what, late March of 2026 through 2027, it's estimated that we will have, let me find the stat so I can read it verbatim, 11,000 Americans turning 65 years of age every day through the end of next year, which means 77,000 retirements per week, or roughly 4 million per year. At the same time, our birth rates for women are at an all-time low. And I won't nerd out about the data points that I found, but not only are we at an all-time low, we're not even close to the rate to keep even with the retirements or even to have a population increase. Why does this matter? Outside of the fact that I nerd out about data like this and what countries are doing to have families consider more children. That's another thing. The reason I share this data is there are so many jobs that will become available. It is just a matter of the skills and the career pathway that we encourage our young people to go. And right now, there are not only less humans going into college because there's less humans, there are more opportunities now because trades like construction and electrical are doing a hell of a job recruiting and showing an all-encompassing from salary to benefits package that is going to be well over what I made in my first job. My little cousin was making double what I made, and that was 15, 16 years ago in my first job. And now we have this opportunity to reframe skills and be aware that there is a shrinking population, a lot of people leaving and exiting, and employers are going to start doing whatever they can to get the best talent. And we have a chance as parents to start thinking, how do we raise our children to think openly to, do I want to go college? Do I want to go trades? Do I want to go here? And just shoving them out the door to get in the van to go to the next practice is teaching a transferable skill. So I'll stop there
Mhm.
because I'm just rambling and I have 3 more pages of data points.
I think what you're bringing
Save
up,
something for the convention.
yeah, there you
Right.
go. Say something for the convention. I think though what you're really getting at too is just the fact that there's this very odd imbalance of how the older, like retire, like cusp of retiring generation is treated by a company, and then also too like how the attitude is towards a new person coming in to maybe take that position that's about to be retired type of deal. And I used to see this when I was in the workforce where, there would be, hey, we're looking for a person for this position, and it was always something like, experience required type of deal. And I remember talking to a lot of young people, and it was like, the whole reason I'm getting this job is to get into this and get the experience. I don't know where you want me to go and get the experience when every single company has that as their entry level thing, come with experience. And it's like that, I feel like that is a phrase in a job posting that really needs to go away for the most part, unless it's something where it's
Yeah.
above an entry level position. Like, it should be a, hey, what have you, like, based upon your studies, that kind of thing, or whatever it is. And also too, I feel like especially for entry level, like, in-person interviews are definitely like the thing. Like, that's how you find out, can this person hack it, can this person mesh with what we have going on here. I know when I got hired at my job, I got brought in for an in-person interview. The guys who they had brought in behind me, they said that they look great on paper, but when they brought them in, they were one hot mess, to talk with in person or whatnot. And that's how I ended up getting the job, is because basically like I outpresented them. But
Yeah.
the thing with it is that you see this more and more coming around where, like you said, like there has to be a way for this transition to take place more smoothly
Mhm.
to keep the ongoing of people coming in. I know General Electric, I used to go in there every once in a while for a job and talk with some of the older guys while I was setting up like Xerox machines. And they would be talking about how they're like, yeah, if we don't figure this out soon, like the position, the job is going to be like gone because we don't have anybody. And I'm like, yeah, you got to look at these young people as somebody that you can mold and work with. If you are constantly like, oh, nagging about the way that they're different than you, because every generation below you is going to be different, but actually having a positive attitude about it, that's going to be the way that you bring in new talent.
Yeah.
That's going to keep the
And you
business
can,
going.
I think you can see something that Matt's presenting too in just about every single one of those points, at least from what Matt is your presentation. So I don't know, but just so you need experience. Did you teach your child problem solving? Did you teach your child, resilience? Did you teach your child how to communicate and how to go to a job and say, look, I know you need experience for this. I need to gain that experience. How can we meet in the middle and
Mhm.
to keep pushing? And all of those things are things that, like my kids, I've told them their whole lives, you can do hard things. And it's such a simple, small thing. But even from the very youngest, you can do hard things, pushes you to a place that you're not stopped by obstacles. You look
Mhm.
at an obstacle and say, do I need to get past this? And if so, how do I do it? What skills have I learned? Again, in in just my brother and I were fighting and I had to figure out, I wanted this toy and he had this toy and I needed to figure out how to tell him, you need to give me that toy. And it's such a small thing when you're thinking about what kids are doing, and a lot of times we've got so many other things to do, we kind of ignore that. Okay, you
Mhm.
guys, y'all handle that. I don't care. I got to do the dishes. I got to change diapers. I got to do laundry, all of those things that are going on. But taking those moments, those opportunities to look
Yeah.
at your children and say, this is great. I love that y'all have this conflict. Now, how do we resolve it? How do we get through it? That
Mhm.
sounds like kind of where you're going, Matt.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. And thank you for the reminder too that I'm not the only one having to yell doing dishes about give your sister back her toy, or
Yeah.
it's all right, we can turn off Danny Go and put on a different show that everyone wants to watch. Just let
Right.
me get this done. But yeah, you're right. And I think it's important too as parents that we're not going to get everything right, right? We have to have grace. We want to see progress, not perfection. But that's something to also share with our kids, right? I have a class right now that I'm teaching at Otterbein. It's called Life and Work After Graduation, and it's a career readiness. And we're talking about overcoming challenges. We brought in professionals to talk. And the one thing that I see consistently is everyone is so worried about the grade and not the process.
Yes.
They're so worried about the final outcome, but not what we learned along the way. And, if there's anything for us as parents to think about in training, educating, helping, loving, nurturing our children is something that I think we need to also instill career wise, and that is progress over perfection. It might not be the prettiest, but you get there. Or, for example, if anyone here is a Bengals fan, it's never pretty, but you sometimes get progress. I'm a Browns fan, so it's always we want progress and then we get broken. Um, it's,
We're
but
kindred spirits.
joke aside, it's also knowing, right? We're not going to get it all correct. We're not going to be there for every moment to help lead our kids, but to also remind them, even though I can't, you also can't as well. You're not going to get an A all the time, but we can't lose ourselves because you got a B, or, for me, I got C's, get degrees. But where we can get it,
Nice.
the experience is talk about how we've overcame those small failures along the way and start to show. Or a lot of schools now are starting to get part-time and full-time career and college pathways positions to start placing and being that connector of business and school so
Mhm.
that we can get more people into apprenticeships, internships to help too. And I'll just end this point with one more little fact is that a lot of employers now are forgoing the experience for someone that excels in the skills that are severely missing for that job. They
That's
can
good to hear.
teach the expertise in a lot of roles. I mean, I'm not talking about doctors here, but I am talking about other entry level positions. If you can show up on time, look halfway put together, and talk, they can teach you the rest.
Right.
And that's where we're going to be at. And I'll just put a cherry on top of this point. Because of so many people retiring, the biggest opportunity for jobs is going to be in the small business networks. Our small business employers are going to be having the most jobs, not necessarily big corporate jobs. And that's something else to really think about at home as well.
Why
Yeah.
would that be? What's the I don't know. I don't want to get super into the data. I do. And I know you would, but we probably shouldn't because there are other people listening. But what's the difference? What's going on there that would make that would be true?
Outside of a lot of other things just in corporate America, we're looking at smaller businesses that have open jobs. They're right here in our neighborhoods, but
Hmm.
either people are aging out and retiring, as I, said earlier, but some CEOs or founders are retiring and they're looking for people to come up the ranks to take it. There's someone that I work with who is losing a corporate job, but then found a local person with the same kind of work that he was doing, and he's getting ready to retire. And so he's getting groomed to potentially take that over.
Yeah.
There is a lot of opportunity in small business America, but for a lot of times, and I think, as parents, right, we're preaching you got to go to college, you got to get that education. But then we're also saying you got to get in that corporate America because that's what your grandfather or grandmother did. That's what, your one of your parents is doing
Hmm.
because that's where you have the money, the stability. But there's not as much stability right now. And we're seeing that just with the political and socio-economical, challenges around the world.
Yeah.
The small businesses are where there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And they're the ones that are more willing to say, if you can do X, Y, and Z, if you're empathetic, you can communicate and you have the skills to show up on time, I'll teach you the rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you'd
Yeah.
probably get that closer relationship too if you go to a small business as opposed to I'm going to go drop, apply it, whatever
I
at
can remember
Clark as an
too.
example.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I remember back when I was in high school, we had co-op programs for seniors where you basically you might do just a half a day basically, come in the morning, take a few classes or whatever, and then you would go off to and I lived in a farming area, but you might go work somewhere in like agricultural office or you were going to go work at maybe be alongside of something involved with like nursing type of deal or like I worked for Carter Lumber in the plumbing and electric area because I was very interested in kind of learning what does it look like, especially I was interested in trades it seemed like even though I didn't go into it, but just knowing how to deal with piping and how to hook up electricity, that kind of stuff. And even though I was literally just behind the counter or out stocking, I still had time to come alongside of these individuals who were coming in and buying that stuff and being able to have conversations with them and finding out all kinds of different aspects of it. And I don't know if other high schools even do that anymore or if that's even an offering because I feel like that's sort of, to me, that's a lost opportunity to be able to get very specific interactions
Mm-hmm.
with these young people who can come along with to talk to people who are actually like in the trenches doing those things because I feel like as at-home dads like we run into sometimes young people who maybe they're new parents or something along those lines and they've got all kinds of questions and they want to ask you different things. I was just recently actually talking to a young doctor because I had our kid was in the hospital recently and she was saying that she wasn't sure that she wants to bring a child into this world because she doesn't understand how to parent them. It's so different than when they were growing up. And I know Corey and I, we just stopped her and was just like, listen, like, you can't look at how everybody else is parenting and get freaked out by that. Like,
Yeah.
you have to pick and choose how you're going to do this, like that's how Corey and I did it. We sat down and was like, you know, what do you remember from your childhood? What did you like? What did you dislike? Even if it was a dislike, was it a positive dislike type of thing? And kind of figuring all those things out. And I feel like we did a pretty good job of just encouraging, like, maybe you should reconsider. Not saying you should do it, but maybe not come at it from a full, like 100% negative side of things. And it was a really quick conversation, but I felt like it was like, this is probably something that needs to happen more often with young people, because there are quite a few that are out there questioning that kind of thing. And I think the same thing can be said for you're talking about in the workforce. Like, people are like, young people are just trying to figure it out. And if there's a lack of skills, that's where those of us who are have been in it can do that. And as a parent, especially, what does that look like to come alongside? So I'm really excited to hear more in person in Chicago about your presentation. I think that it looks like you've done quite a bit of research, which I'm not surprised one bit. You're very professional when you come with a speaking engagement. So I'm very excited to see how other dads who haven't had a chance to interact with you, how they get to do that, and see how that goes from there, man. This has been a really good conversation.
Thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you and with the dads, especially as we get to Chicago. It's the topic you didn't know you wanted to know about until you start having it. So I'm really looking forward to it and humbled to have been selected to lead this conversation. Thank you. And thank you for your time today.
I agree with that statement 100%. Because again, you're in the trenches, especially if you're the at-home parent. You don't have time to pull your head out of the dirt and go, what are we doing? Long term? I don't know. I'm getting through today. And that's all we get. But you do have to recognize those things and those skills that you're teaching them every single day. I mean, just like to do chores. What is that? It's just part of life. This is just what we do. Telling your 2-year-old, would you pick that up and put it in the trash? They're able to pick it up and put it in the trash. They should be doing that, right? It's that learning that responsibility and everything. And I love this subject because I think we don't know it. We don't realize it, like you just said, until you're like, oh, yeah, I should have been doing that all along. Where were you 15 years ago,
And I think it's just, you're 100% right what you just said. And I think it's important to note too, for 98% right.
Oh, he pulled it
My
back.
heart.
I'm just joking. 100% right. And for any at-home dad or parent that hears this episode that might be thinking, I'm just at home, I haven't been in the workforce for blank years, or I've never been in, but maybe I won't be. You still have an opportunity to give insight and teach skills and character building. You're able to help grow your child just emotionally. Those are missing skills. So there is a lot, whether you've had a job, will have a job, currently have a job, or don't, to still influence. But I think it's most important when you get to be 100% of the time there to help, or 85% of the time there to help in the growth and development of your little humans. That's when I talk about this, I always like to say little humans, because that could be a whole range of ages. You still have that influence because you're their manager. You're an ops manager at home, and you're teaching them all of these skills. So you absolutely 110% have a place in this. So I just want to also share that, because I don't want anyone to think I'm not working. So why should I be thinking about it? You are working, and you are the manager and the CEO and the fill in the blank position. You are that person, and you have a seat at the table of voice, and you are the hand that is guiding them through this journey. So I just want to make sure that I snuck that in there too ahead of this talk.
I agree so much on all that. I think that is our time. Really appreciate you coming on the show, Matt, and talking with us. Looking forward to getting to hang out in person. I'm hopefully going to be able to connect with you before Home Dad Con, since I'm only a short drive away. So we'll get to hang out that way. But yeah, man, until then, honestly, I hope that you're having a good time at your new position, and we will see you real soon in person. So for everybody else, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you all again next week.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.